How y'all doing? I got quite a bit more knives here that I'm going to go ahead and cover. These basically have come in over the last, I don't know, week or so. I'm still missing just a couple of them. One of them is running late. The other one is, it's still in the process of getting here. But first up, we have this guy right here. This is a Jelly Jerry. This is a TS351 Mxnium. So far, I don't know the name of this thing, but I'm going to call it my squishy, kind of due to the, well, it's a little bit of a pun going on with, what is it, Finding Nemo? But this thing is micarta on both sides, and we only really have a little bit of a liner here. So this thing is more flexible than an original Benchmade bug out, so that's why I want to call it my squishy. It's not going to break or anything like that, but it does have some interesting things going on. We have a front flipper design here that works out super, super well. We have a really strange compound grind. That's the word I'm looking for. So we got a compound grind here. Jelly Jerry does that on quite a few of his designs. This one is interesting. It's a very sharp transition there. But we have a flat part here and then a little bit of a cant up. This thing is, it's not small. It's a little over 3.5 inches for the blade there. And the other thing that's a little bit interesting about this guy is basically the back spacer / pocket clip on this thing. For me, this is actually really difficult to use, but I understand the thought process behind it, and this isn't exactly the first one of its type out there. I just find them a little bit difficult to get into. I did knock down the heel on this one a bit because it was sticking up a little bit more than I really felt comfortable with. But what is nice is that this thing came out of the box drop shutty, and hey, it's still that way. I got these knives set up here so I can just kind of stuff them around, and that way y'all can see the size comparison of probably the two most well-known ones there. But yeah, that's interesting. The micarta on this is it's basically their standard micarta, but fairly rough. It's not more of a polished kind of thing going on there. But interesting. I'll go ahead and set you way over there. All right, next one I have here is the TS384. This is a new Tepe design. Kerchunk. Yes. I got number 20 for this. It's an M390, as most, but not all of Tepe's designs are. And actually, now that I think about it, where is the darn thing? Aha. This is actually fairly similar to the Maverick, or the TS177 here. See the Maverick, it's a little bit taller in the blade, and more of a gradual point up. This has a little bit more of a dagger point to it. But that's what's going on with that. This thing is just basically flat slab titanium going on here. It does have some skeletonization going on the inside. And the handle isn't quite as curved as that Maverick that was just on the screen. It's pretty comfortable. I don't mind it at all. I did actually think that this thing had a little bit of contour on it from the initial pictures. It doesn't, but that's okay. We do have two lashing points, if you will, of the pocket clip, so you don't just have that one single piece there. We do have a reverse detent ramp, and there's basically where the detent meets it. We have a nice hole here that you can do the reverse Spidey flick with. And yeah, just due to the nature of how most frame locks end up being, I can't slow roll this out with my thumb. And the pocket clip just basically misses the lock bar thing there. So it's not adding any more to it. But yeah, it's a pretty nice design overall. Really good job with the plunge grind there. I do have quite a few sharpenings before it might end up getting a little bit of a smile there. So yeah, that's the next up that I ended up picking up. Let's see, the next one here is a fixed blade. This is the TS351 from Mazwan Mokhtar. This is using their same micarta, but polished up quite a bit more. You can see heavily stonewashed here, and that's due in part to it being 14C28N. And this thing is actually really, really darn comfortable. It does remind me quite a bit of another one of his, the puffer here. So I had that pulled out. You can see the micarta on that is very, very different. Much looser weave on that. This is much more of a burlap style micarta, I suppose. And of course, this is a very, very aggressive clip point rather than the more very subtle drop point that we got going on there. A little up sweep to the blade with the jimping just basically where I would want it. It's a nice grip. I can either grip it relaxed and have the pinky end up there on the back, or I can really choke up there, and it's pretty comfortable. What I would say, though, is it's got this lanyard hole on the end, and that would probably get in the way of my pinky if I was trying to do a relaxed grip. So I guess if you were to use a lanyard on here, and you have these big old meat hooks like I do, then you would probably want to choke up a little bit more on that. We do have, it's basically the fixed blade equivalent of a shadow box, where the blade tang is exposed all the way around, rather than meeting up with the scales. But it's much more comfortable than it would be on a folder that has those, because that's, well, you have a lot thicker piece of material there. It's a pretty darn good knife. I do like it quite a bit. The one thing that I do kind of wish was a little bit different on it is the sheath on here. For one, we've gone back to just the standard folded over plastic one that almost all the other TUCSON fixed blades have done, whereas the puffer actually had their own kind of interpretation of a tech lock that actually worked pretty darn well. So I do kind of wish that it came with something like that, but yeah, oh well. The other thing that I've noticed is you have an extended piece here before, you know, it finally gets to the engagement point, where you don't on a lot of their others. And that means that if you don't get that directly vertical, it's really easy, as you can see, to probably just slice parts of that off. So that's not good. But otherwise, yeah, it's very secure in there. Works out super, super great. Obviously, you don't want to have your finger up here when you pull the blade out, because it's just going to meet with an untimely gash in yourself. So there's that. But yeah, it's a pretty darn good fixed blade. And I do think I like it a little bit more than the puffer here. This one reminds me a little bit more of his Orca, that really gigantic folder. Let's see. Next up, we have one that I wasn't really expecting to get, but got a pretty decent deal on it, and I'm happy for it. This right here is a TS178 Tentara. This is a NightMorning and Tepe Designs collaboration. As you can see, we got a karambit hole going on here. We got a nice back flipper. That's the word, yeah. And this thing is actually interesting to me. It's not quite as aggressive. Here, I will pull out my other karambit from TUCSON. Well, yeah, the one that's worth talking about, because the other ones are the ones in 420J2 and things. But yeah, this one's from Mazwan Mokhtar. It's the TS242, if you were curious about that. But you can see this blade shape isn't nearly as aggressive of a karambit. The handle's a little bit longer, and the finger hole is actually a little bit larger on that. And I do actually like it quite a bit more than that one there. For one, I have basically 3 ways that I can comfortably grab this thing. I can loop my ring finger in there and get the back if you need that extra reach. But you can also do the standard with the pinky back there, and that's pretty darn good. But you can also choke up, and yeah, you can see just how large this finger choil area is. But hey, it actually fits me, and that's like one of the first ever for a for a TUCSON. So I do appreciate that quite a bit. This one is an S90V. I guess this one's number 165. I know this has been out for quite a while, so yeah, I lost my train of thought on there. Yeah, it's been out for quite a while, so I thought maybe they had made a little bit more of those, but maybe not. And we have this pocket clip here with very large ceramic bearing in there. And it's actually not too bad to get your pocket in there. It does roll pretty easily to get out of the way if you're trying to get that into a pair of pants. And, you know, obviously it's got quite a bit of flex to it because it's fairly thin up here. So this one might be one that the pocket clip might get a little ugly and mangled if it gets caught on something too many times. But, you know, what are you going to do there? We also have this hole on the front here to kind of match exactly where that sits. And we do have some skeletonization going on the inside. So that does cut down on the weight a little bit. This one's an S90V rather than M390. And I did not sharpen this one with stones. Usually a gradual arc like that is fairly difficult to do that unless you have very, very thin stones. But yeah, I did sharpen this up with belts, and that worked out pretty darn well. It did take a bit of effort, so this isn't a stupid soft S90V, so that's good. The detent when you're doing this, probably because the ball bearing here interfaces with the lock bar. Yeah, it does feel like it has a very, very stiff detent. But it's got that hole there, and you know, if you can overcome that detent, which just takes a little bit more pressure, super easy to open that way. But yeah, same kind of thing happens. I don't really have a good place to put the rest of my fingers if I wanted to slow roll that out. So there's the TS178 Tentara. Next up, I have something that isn't a TUCSON. This is a KAISER. It's a sheepdog with the flipper delete on it. And the reason I ended up picking this guy up is, well, it's in CPM 10V, which that's a steel that I'm kind of interested in. So I went ahead and picked it up. Let's see. I had something else I was going to talk about with this gall darn thing, as long as I can actually find. Here we go. Yeah, I will compare it a bit to the Towser K because, well, they're fairly similar as far as knives are concerned, especially this one with the flipper delete going on there. This one obviously does have the contoured micarta, but whereas this one is a little bit more flat slab micarta, so it is a little bit more like the Rich Light variant of this, which is upstairs, which is why I didn't grab it. Yeah, it's also nested liners, so that does cut down on the thickness of it compared to the Towser K here. But works out pretty darn well. I do like the hole on there, as I just fail it for you. So there's that, and I can also slow roll that thing out. It is interesting. That Sheepdog, which isn't a small knife, it's not a full 4-finger grip for me. It can be because I have the flipper delete version on here. But when I'm just grabbing it back where the finger hole or finger handled choil, whatever you want to call that, is there, yeah, it's like a 3.5 finger knife, which is interesting. It does have a little bit of a different pocket clip to it. It's still deep carry, but a little bit easier and more flexible to deal with than what we have with KAISER's standard pocket clip that most ASO designs have on there. This is made with, it's an older design, so it doesn't have any more of KAISER's improvements in like action and things like that. So it's kind of a wiggle shut there, whereas these TUCSONs with the multi-row bearings and great action just drop shut on you. But CPM 10V was the interesting part on that. The other interesting part is I got this in natural micarta. These things actually came in like 6 variants. They were Blade HQ exclusives. But they basically had 3 different colors of micarta. They had natural, they had brown, which was a little bit darker. A little bit more of what this actually looks like since I've been playing around with it for a bit. Got some finger oils on there. And they had, of course, olive drab green. But they also had each of those variants in the flipper delete as well as the original version of it. So a whole bunch of different variants of it. This one apparently is number 50 of this particular variant. I first saw the number 50 on the sticker for this thing. And then when I opened it up, noticed that it matched that on there. This is a Chris Conway design, if you're not familiar with the Sheepdog, though. But yes, the reason I went with natural micarta on this is I do plan on doing some dye stuff on there. And I did just recently get the dye pot and everything. So I should be pretty good to go fairly soon on dyeing some micarta. So that should be fun. Let's see, the next up is one you've probably seen on the channel in a different variant. We got this guy right here. This is a TUCSON. This is the TS351? Yes, 359 with the brass bolsters there. We have stainless steel liners going on this one. We got a Damascus steel blade on here, very deeply etched, and as you can see, yes, it does have a core steel that runs all the way through there. Do I know what that core steel is? No. Neither does almost anybody else, because most companies, including TUCSON, don't really talk about what their Damascus is. It would be nice if it was VG10, but I'm pretty sure it's not. My best guess might be like 9CR, kind of like what Civivi does, but yeah, then again, I'm not sure. It's fairly easy to sharpen, though. So there's definitely that. This one has shell. And by that, it certainly looks to me to be abalone. And yeah, because of that, you can see we basically have a very, very thin veneer of that. And then we have basically clear acrylic. It's the way pretty much everybody ends up doing these kinds of knives. And it looks really pretty, but it actually kind of feels a little bit cheaper than the original version that I have that is using ebony wood. This one still has the little lanyard fob on there that they come with. I just haven't taken it off. But yeah, it's an attractive knife. It still has that same problem of this brass back barrel thing that can whack it if you close it really without intention. So that's still kind of a negative there. But it's a really attractive knife, and they weren't very expensive. Let's see, next up was one that I've been waiting for before any of the other TUCSONs that I've covered since, I don't know, maybe November or something like that. And that is this guy right here. This is the TS351 from Mxnium, I think. Yeah, Mxnium. But yeah, there's their maker's mark there. It's in 14C28N. And we have these titanium scales going on here with a pretty interesting design. You can see we have some micro milling going on the openings there, and then also at the top and bottom there. So we have a couple of smooth channels. And the backside also matches that. And the pocket clip actually matches those kind of areas. It does look a little strange, but it does actually mimic what's right behind there. And for the most part, I do like this thing. It's got a nice stonewash finish on there. It's a nice size. We got a very, very long backspacer there that actually has a little bit of exposed area back there. You can actually see just a little tiny bit of that blade sticking up when it's closed. Yeah, nice flicking action or flipping action. Closes super nice as well. The one thing that does get me with this one, oh yeah, little hidden lanyard piece there, so that's a nice touch as well, is the back point on here. Just how it is standard for my larger hands, it ends up kind of poking in a bit uncomfortably there. It's just kind of in the, not exactly the most ideal location. I can compare that quite a bit to this guy from Wong that I've been recently carrying. This is 287? Yeah, 287. And, well, the blade's basically right around the same. It's a little bit taller, of course, but you can see the handle is a little bit longer there. It still has a little bit of a point up there, but it's out of the way of my hand because it's much longer, so it doesn't actually point into that. If you probably have normal-sized hands, you know, not these, well, I wear extra large gloves if that helps anybody out, then the way that this knife probably fits for me will be the way that this one fits for you. And it's really attractive design. It's got that nice acid wash tumbled titanium thing there, and a really interesting design, but it's just a little tiny bit too uncomfortable for me, just due to that point being in kind of an unfortunate location. Okay, and last up, I have one that I probably should have had for a very, very long time, and that is this chunky boy right here. This is a TS351 Kodiak. Yeah, we got a nice stonewash 14C 28N blade. We have nice, thick carbon fiber slabs there over pretty thick titanium liners. This is yeah, there's the maker's mark on the pocket clip. This is a Savage Bladeworks knife here. And I just got this in the mail, haven't really done anything to it. And, well, the action on this one isn't stupendous out of the box. Yeah, I can see that it has basically a back flipper as well as a front flipper, neither one of which I can get this thing to fully deploy with yet. So I do want to disassemble that, but I'm also a little afraid to do that. If you're familiar with this knife, then you know that this one is a bit different. As you can see, we got, you know, the blade goes around the pivot rather than the pivot. Yeah, whatever. And because of that, we don't have captive bearings in this thing. We have a whole bunch of just kind of ones that are fitting in channels in there. For one, what I was afraid of with pivot being just a little bit too small, that's true if I actually wanted to carry it or hold it like that. But this is definitely comfortable enough for me. And I suppose you can also choke up if that's something that you want to do. We have a pretty interesting design going on here with the recurve here. But yeah, this one, I do actually want to do a separate video on this for the teardown of it because, well, if I'm going to suffer, I might as well have other people suffer along with me. So, yeah, I will go ahead and do the rest of the blade comparisons here since I do have it out there. So there's the Kodiak. And the 351 there. The 359. Sheepdog. The Tentara. And we'll splay those up just a little bit more. And we have the 309, which I'm not aware of the name of, if it has one. And the TS384. Which I don't remember if I compared, but I definitely did the first one here to it. So yeah, I got a whole bunch of fun new knives. I still, like I said, have some more on the way. I have another KAISER. It should have been here yesterday, but it seems to have got lost in the mail, unfortunately. But that one is a KAISER Feist in CPM 4V. So that should be fun to have 10V and 4V. Since I haven't really played around with those blade steels yet, to be able to grab a couple of them fairly close to each other from the same manufacturer, sounds like a good deal to me. That one has rich light handles, but they're red instead of blue like the Towser K. So that one should be pretty cool. I still have that fixed blade from Mxnium with the bone handle that I'm waiting on. And I also got the enormous version of the Kalashnikov 74 Desert Warrior one. And that's the one that's got, well, I can actually show you essentially the size that it ends up being. Because I already have a Kalashnikov XXL. This thing is, yeah, super, super big. It's going to be the size of like a small maple bar or something like that. But yep, that's kind of neat. So I can have that and the normal one, and of course the itty bitty one that I just recently got. And oh yes, I also ended up picking up. It was another White Mountain exclusive. It's the KAISER Begleiter XL in micarta with a button lock. So 4-inch blade on that thing, with right around the same dimensions as the normal Begleiter, but you know it's also got the button lock on there. And of course it's using 154 cm rather than VG10 or N690 that Begleiters used to come in. Sounded super cool to me, so I've ordered one of those. But yeah, as with the other ones that I just mentioned, they're not here yet. So yeah, we'll figure that out just a little bit later. Oh yeah, and another one, because I just can't keep my wallet closed. I bought the other Migron budget knife, the Acri, I think it's called. It's a front flipper. It's a little bit larger than the other one, which is, there we go. Yeah, so this is the Vera, or the Vaso as I ended up, yeah, it is the Vaso. I accidentally labeled this thing the Vera, and ended up calling it that. But yeah, I do think it's a little bit bigger than this one, but yeah, it should be interesting. So, yeah, that is almost all the knives that I have. I got a 6-leaf and one more TUCSON on the way that I think they just shipped off maybe a day or two ago. It's another Mazwan Mokhtar design. It's been around for a while, but I got a hold of one for a deal that I was comfortable with. So, woohoo, a whole bunch of more knives that I have to add to my collection. Out of all of these, I think my two favorites, definitely the Tentara. I didn't think I would like it. I mean, it's a karambit, and those don't usually tickle me in the right ways. But this thing is just really comfortable in a lot of different grips, and you can really choke up on there. And yeah, it just really, really surprised me. So really, really like that. And well, the Sheepdog's fun enough to play with. And really interested to see how this does on a cut test once I actually get around to doing said thing. At the 384, it's not bad. Like I said, I thought this was a little bit more contoured. It still is pretty darn comfortable, but I think it probably could have been just a little bit more if it did have some contoured scales going on there. But yeah, at least this one, as I pointed out, did a pretty good job with its plunge grind. So, all right. That's basically everything I have for you. If you've stuck around this long, hey, I appreciate it. And if not, well, then you won't hear this. So then you don't know that I appreciated it. But as always, I appreciate y'all for watching. And have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo. Subscribe.